Oké, ja, ik heb Engelse slides voorbereid. Ik zal het ook zo goed mogelijk in het Engels brengen, maar ik ben dat helemaal niet gewoon. Dus af en toe ga ik een woord niet vinden, dan vraag ik misschien jullie hulp. Okay. I'll tell you the process of the last 20 months of our work on the coastal issues. And I'll start with one figure. I think you all know these figures. It's from a study which stopped 20 months ago with an article in the journal with this figure. And on this figure you see the western part of the coasts swallowed by the sea. And the majors of the communities there were quite angry about the article about this figure. So the study had to stop immediately. We couldn't end it in a good way. But an end has a start. The end of that study is a start of our new project of top kustzone. And as an answer on that study, as an answer on the problems with the majors, or an answer on bad communication and bad collaboration, we made a new kind of process, a territorial development program for the coastal region. The study, Metropolitan Coastal Landscapes, was a far future exploratory survey. We looked about 90 years ahead to 2100. We had in mind to build some figures about how the coast could look in about 90 years, but not as to have a realistic view, a realistic plan, but to search some out-of-the-box ideas for the coast. We had to make a lot of assumptions about how would life be in 2100, about mobility, about how we would work, how we would live. There aren't facts and figures about 2100. How would our population grow or increase? How would we move? Electric cars, helicopters, whatever. In that study, there wasn't much time, and we hadn't made a study. We hadn't made a process with much conversations with the local politicians. So they were astonished by the figures because they weren't contact before. And the research by design was a bit science fiction for the people who weren't involved in the study. So it was a very good study, but with a very bad outcome, with a very bad end. But now we use all the work for a new project of kustzone, which is not looking that far in the future, but where we were searching where we are looking for near future actions and on that on the coastal region in Flanders. So we do not have to make assumptions in a far future. We can work on real life problems. We have lots of facts and figures. How the population will evolve the next 10, 15, 20 years. We try to involve the politicians and the local communities on the short term, so they know what we are doing, and it's not only research. We try to find some pilot projects, some work on the ground, so we can make some realizations, so we can show what our study is about. Thus we won't stop with paperwork, with figures. We will try to work on pilots. As a first start, we had a bilateral consultation of every major in every municipality with two goals. First goal was to tell why we made that study about 2,100 and what was the merit of that study. So not the figures, but the background documents were very useful, are very useful. So that was what we had to explain to them. And the second step was about action. Where are the real life problems, the problems the municipalities are facing now? We made that 19 consultations. We made a lot of tables, texts about these local problems, and now we try to deal with that problems, not with the far future ones. The study about 2100 was a coalition with 4 partners of administrations of the region of Flanders and the province of West Flanders, but we had to make a new coalition after this study. The new coalition is Ruimte Vlaanderen, is our administration together with the province of West Flanders, and with a lot of consultation of the local municipalities. There are 19 municipalities in the region, 10 along the coast and 9 in the hinterland. And they are dealing with several issues: climate change and water, mobility, and demographic changes. The coastal area is aging very fast. There are much more elderly people in these cities than in the other parts of Flanders. So it's a region which voorlopen. Which goes ahead of the others about an aging population. So there is much need of care, of special services for elderly people. And another problem is our building issues. We have a coastline full of old buildings. We call it the Atlantic Wall. But these buildings are 50, 60 years old. They are very inefficient about energy. They have very small apartments. They are old. They need a makeover. It's a very monotone. It's almost not used for a living. It's almost only used for apartments for tourists. They're very small. There is no almost no quality about architecture, not in materials or construction, and the facilities are very poor. So one of the issues several majors told us is how do we have to deal with this monotone wall, and how can we reinvent that region in every municipality into an attractive neighborhood where people also will live a year long and not only come and visit in summer, where we can attract people to live there in families. So we need bigger apartments where children can live, where elder people can live with special needs, where we have services like shops who are all year open. So we have to change that Atlantic wall. There are 9 coastal villages who deals with that issue, but they all see it only as a local problem. They do not see it as a shared problem along the coasts. So they all are thinking about solutions for their own few kilometers on the sea bank. They are not thinking about working together to solve that problem. The other municipalities, they deal with other problems. There are a lot of very small villages behind the coastline, with also an aging population, with a very poor accessibility to services, with very few services in the village, and they deal with the question: how can these small villages survive the next decades? How can we evolve? How can these villages evolve in a good way? And all these issues are too important to let each of these 19 villages search for own solutions. So we need a broad coalition to search for a good solution for these issues. And that's why we started Top Kustzone. So we built a better coalition with the 19 municipalities, with several administrations of the Flanders, of the region of Flanders. We thought we have a common interest in the coastal zone, but a common interest doesn't mean a common research goal. For instance, the Flemish OVAM, that's the Flemish Public Waste Company, they are thinking about the reconversion of that buildings on the sea bank. They are thinking about waste reduction on a cradle-to-cradle of building materials. So they are thinking about another research problem, another problem on the coastal zone than other administrations like us in the Ruimte Vlaanderen, of the Flemish bouwmeester, of master builder, who looks about public services, about the quality of buildings. So we were trying to make one common research goal. It took 6 months to have one research goal where all of these partners were agreed. But 6 months wasn't enough. After 6 months we had a text about what is the common research goal for all our partners, for our coalition. But that goal wasn't sharp enough. We had we needed some more time while the study was already going. We needed more time to sharpen the goal. we could sharpen the goal by focus on a few cases on the coastal region. That's my next slide. I'll restart. The specific question of the Atlantic wall and the reconversion of that apartment buildings on the sea bank was a very specific question from 5 municipalities. But we searched, we tried to rethink that very specific question in a more broad, generic question that could work also on the 19 municipalities. So not on the 5 who had this question about the Atlantic wall, but we searched for a common research question that was useful for the 19 municipalities. We searched for a research goal about how to look on another way on these buildings, the quality of the buildings, on how to change that single use for tourism into a multi-use for tourism, but also for the own inhabitants. About the livability of that buildings and the neighborhoods. Also about services for the aging people who are less mobile, who need more care. A new or a future-proof transportation, something like e-cars or e-bikes or a better public transport. And also some question about these small hinterland villages. How could that future transportation, maybe some automatic mobility or a better public transport, how can that solve the problem of the very bad accessibility of these small hinterland villages? All these questions were put in our research texts, and now we work on that text, but it's a range of much problems, and with our coalition of 4 administrations, we still had some different thoughts about what the study could offer. So we had to focus. The solution was to focus on 4 cases in the region where we can, or different interests. That gives us a new problem. Only 4 cases for 19 municipalities. How can we involve all of them? We made a steering committee where not all 19 municipalities can join, so we had to ask them to send 4 representatives, so they can review the progress and they can bring the information to their neighbors. So everybody is informed about the progress. There will be a feedback for all in big fora with all the stakeholders before the research project ends, so they can all have some inputs in the study. And the outcome of the cases will be useful for not only that 4 municipalities with the cases, but for every municipality. They all can find interesting outcome for their own problems. Now, our study is has come to this part. One last and final step is a very important step, is how to translate the outcome of the study into pioneer projects in these municipalities. So we will search for majors who will be forerunners or pioneers by implement or study or outcome from our study into real life building projects in their neighborhoods, and that pilots should be then good examples that can be copied by their neighbors. That's my very fast overview.